Good morning. Well, yeah, no, we just kind of got, it's midday, so we're going into afternoon. So good afternoon, people of Facebook world. Welcome to your lunchtime live lounge. I've not been around, have I, the last couple of weeks? Things have gone a bit crazy on the old school holidays. Not that my little one is at school, but my babysitter's little one is at school, so it's kind of been a bit crazy. And they went on holiday, and it's just all sort of gone a bit pear-shaped. But I'm back. So, I'm just going to quickly check I'm actually looking and talking in the right place. Otherwise, I'm just talking to thin air, and that's, it's never really fun. So, let me just double check that I am... Yes, there I am. Okay, so, yeah, hopefully, if some of you mamas out there have had their kids go back to school today, welcome to having your life back. I know it's crazy for a lot of people. I don't look forward to it at all, and I've got a few years before he gets to that point yet. So, yeah, I know it's a bit crazy, and hopefully you're getting things back to normal today. Maybe you're just putting your feet up and having a cup of tea and a biscuit, just because you've not had a moment's peace to yourself for the last however many 6 weeks, whatever it is. So welcome back to the land of normality, if that's where you've been and what you've been getting up to. Things have been quiet, I think, for me, but that's always a good thing because it gives me time to work on some of the stuff that I have coming up, and just kind of time to reflect and sort of take a step back and have a really good look at what I'm up to and making sure that I'm on target and all those kinds of things. But having said that, there are still some people that do carry on working through the holidays. Maybe they don't have children, or maybe it's just that, their children are all grown up and actually they don't need to have that time away. But there is some stuff. There's been lots of questions going on, and one of the ones that I was tagged into last week into a different group, not my group, a different group, was it was about Instagram, and they wanted to know how I had managed to get so many followers there. Now, I've only just really kind of found my feet with Instagram. It's not something that I'm massive on. It's getting better. It's getting, I've been targeting myself a little bit more on there recently. But certainly I still do have a lot more followers than maybe some other people do. And they were asking how I'd managed to do that. And their specific question was really about hashtagging, potentially. How are people finding me? How am I finding them? And all that sort of stuff. Good morning, Elena. And she wanted to know... how I'd managed to achieve that. And one of the questions that I threw back to her was, what is she doing to make herself attractive in that area? What is she doing to attract the people that she would like to follow her account? And her question was hashtags. And so I said to her, okay, so what hashtags are you using? Are you, have you come up with a batch of hashtags that are right for you and your business? And she said, yeah, I've got some that I think are right. So that's the whole topic of today, is the difference between thinking and knowing. Because if you think something's right but actually you're not seeing results, then maybe it's not right. Okay, and that's kind of sort of the mindset I had to sort of talk to her about. And so I said to her, do you think they're right, or do you know they're right? Because there is a difference. There is a huge difference. And she said, well, how could I possibly know if they're right? I said, well, you're going to know if they're right if your posts are getting some really great feedback, if you're getting some comments, if you're getting some good double taps, the little hearts, if you're, your followers are growing. That's how you know if you've got it right. If none of that is happening for you, then potentially your hashtagging may not be completely on target for you. And then I sort of said to her, how many hashtags are you using? What is your terminology? And what she was doing was she was using literally a handful, maybe 3 or 4. And I can tell you now, in Instagram, that's not enough. You need to really utilize hashtags in Instagram. It will make day and night difference to your posting. So you need to have a lot more. I would say get yourself at least 10. At least 10. And the hashtagging she was using was terminology that she would use as a business, not necessarily the terminology that her potential clients were using. So I had to kind of help her to get that mindset changed into thinking, what would her client type in as a hashtag? And quite often that is not what you would write as a hashtag, being the business end. Because you're very clear, you understand things, you're there to help them, so you know the do's, the don'ts, the whys, the whats, the hows, all that kind of terminology around the business. Whereas the people that you're potentially hoping to attract, they may not know that yet because they haven't found you, you haven't taught them yet. So one of the things we had to go through was helping her with that. And what I said to her is, have you actually researched your hashtags? Now, I know I've spoken about this quite a bit over the last month, since I launched my free 50 hashtags for health pros, the ones that I've researched and used for quite some time that make a massive difference to me. But for me, they're researched, they're well used, well tested, and I know those work really super well. They're not necessarily the ones that I use now on Instagram, but there's certainly some that I have used very, very frequently. And I said to her, have you researched the ones that you're using? Have you really, really looked correctly into whether these are right or wrong? And there are a couple of places that you can do that on the internet. If you have a look at hashtagify.me, and if you have a look at righttag.com, they're a couple of little cheeky things I'm going to give you, because actually they're really super useful. You need to figure out how to use them, and I have a tutorial on that. So if you want to hear about that, if you want to see that, then I can happily send you the link, no problem. But definitely research them. Don't just take it for granted that the ones that you're using or the ones that you think are right are actually right. And that is the difference between thinking and knowing. If you think they're right, you need to prove to yourself that they're right so that you know they're right. Because otherwise you're just kind of poking around in the dark, and it'll become frustrating for you. You'll start to get disheartened. You'll start to be like, well, that's not working for me. Maybe that's not the right area for me. I can't seem to do anything right. I'm not growing my crowd, all of that sort of stuff. But actually, it may just very well be that you're not using the right sort of stuff. And then one of the things we also spoke about, she wanted to know about following people. Now, I can tell you on Instagram, they very recently withdrew all the services from some of the other software providers. So you can no longer do the whole copy follower thing. And if you don't know what that is, essentially software would allow you to say someone wanted to copy my followers, so you could put my account in, it would give a list of all my followers, and you could potentially then go on and follow those people if they were right for you and your crowd. But Instagram has removed that now, and frankly I'm not surprised, because Instagram and Facebook are bestest buddies, and you can't do it on Facebook either. It's not something you can do. So the only way that you can copy follower now on Instagram is if you actually manually do it. It's still a fantastic way of reaching out to people, and I'm definitely someone that is not going to sit there and just wait for people to come to me. I will go and find them first. It's just the same as what it would be if you're at a networking event. You're going to sit on your backside and just wait for people to come to you? No, you're not. You're going to get up off your butt and go and say hello to someone. For me, that's exactly the same strategy as what you do with copy follower in the various different areas of social media. But what I said to her is, you need to be really strategic with that. So I can't remember the exact example I gave her, but let me give an example. I've got Elena on on the line. So I'm going to use her as an example. So she has a fabulous cosmetics company. It's fab. I use it all the time, and it's all chemical free. I think it's vegan. I think some of it's vegan, but it is phenomenal. It's lovely. Now, if she was looking to grow her Instagram following, potentially the people that follow me aren't going to be right necessarily for her, because although some of my followers are health people, some of them are other health businesses, she's possibly not going to be looking for people in that kind of market. If I was running Alina's account, I would probably be looking at maybe looking at alternative companies that do a similar kind of product to her, because the people that are going to be following them are going to be interested in the cruelty-free, the chemical-free, the natural approach, you know, all that kind of thing. So actually, you've got to be super strategic about who you go and follow. And what I'll say is I've done a lot of work around this area for quite some time, and I'd say that if you find a good account, you'll probably get about maybe 30% uptake on what you follow. So for every 100 people that you follow, you'll probably get 30 people that will follow you back. And that's actually a pretty good uptake. Don't expect for 100% follow back, because that's never going to happen. Not even 50% is going to happen. A good one's about 30%, I think. And if you find an account that has a really good follow back rate, then I would stick with it. If it's got a lot of followers and it's really bang on target for your market, then I would stick with that, and I would stay with that for as long as you can. Because what you need to do is you need to learn who's good to follow and who's not. And if you're jumping between lots of different accounts, you're never going to know who is going to be good for you and who isn't. So again, that was something we needed to talk about. You know, you do need to be really super strategic with who you are following, because what you want is you want the right kind of followers to follow you back. You know, you don't want to be a plumber and have loads of fitness professionals following you, because they're potentially not going to be interested in your business and you know, anything that you potentially might be telling them. And vice versa. You know, if you're a fitness person, you don't want a load of plumbers following you, because there's just no connection. It's just not going to connect. It's not going to connect up for you. So that's basically essentially the two things that we sort of spoke about. And she was kind of unsure about her hashtag. She kind of thought they were right, but she didn't really know they were right. So I sent her away and said, you know, go do some research, test the water, because again, that's really important. Because as much as you can research, it's also important to test it. You know, test it with your crowd, because if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. You have to rethink it and try stuff again. So she was sent away to test, research, find the ones that are right for her, change her wording, change the way that she's approaching it, to be more like what her potential clients would type in, rather than maybe what she would type in. And then again, with her follower strategy, she needs to be bang on target with who she's following, and making sure that they're right for her and her market. And grow them progressively, and it is something you have to do fairly frequently. If you're looking to, you know, really ramp up your following, then you need to be on that kind of every day. And I'll give you an example. At the beginning of last week in Instagram, I think I was on about 850. No massive amount, you know. It's not really my playground. I'm much more active on Twitter. But I thought, you know what? I'm fed up with being under 1,000. I want to be over 1,000. So for every day last week, I went on and I followed my specific accounts that I know that have people in them that are going to be on target for me. And by Wednesday, I'd gone over 1,000. I can tell you now that I've got 1,300 now. And that was just from a week of being really, really on target, finding some really good people to follow. And actually, I found one really good account that I've just been tapping away, and it takes you literally 5 minutes a day. The important thing as well is, for me, I do following during the week, and at the weekend I do my unfollowing, because that's important too. You want to make sure that you're unfollowing people that aren't following you back, because I don't give my followers for free. And yeah, that's kind of an example for you, if you like, of being, you know, really, really hammering it and making sure that you're doing it. I mean, even if, and I mean, what's that? 450? Yeah. So even if I did that once a month, I spent 1 week once a month and did that. Actually, that's a really big increase that some people take months to achieve. Just sort of kind of sitting there and hoping that it's going to, you know, miraculously go boom, and actually there's loads of them. But yeah, that gives you an idea. So the difference between thinking and knowing is making sure that you've researched it and that it's right, that you've tested the water, and actually your research has been confirmed that actually, yes, these are the right hashtags for me, these are the right accounts that I should be following, because I'm seeing results. Okay, so that's essentially what you want. You want to see results for the efforts that you are putting in, and if you aren't seeing any results, then you need to change. And I just thought I saw something. There's some sort of quote I saw recently that if you do things the same day in, day out, why do you expect something to change? Because it's not. So yeah, that kind of thing. I think I've got that right. Oh, who knows? But essentially, you know, you'll know if you're doing right because you'll see some sort of result. And if you're not seeing some sort of result, then you need to change your strategy somehow. And if you're changing strategy, change one piece of your puzzle at a time. Don't change the whole thing, because then you're never going to know which piece of it was the bit that needed changing. Because the rest of it might have been perfectly fine. It might be just one piece that you need to change. So, yeah, that's pretty much what I was going to talk about. Throw yourself a question in if you have one. You know, the Monday lunchtime live lands are going to be back now every Monday at midday. So I'll be here to have a little chat with you. Pretty much, I'm just going to talk about stuff that I find during my travels of the week. See what I come across, and there's a lot. There's usually quite a bit actually. I'm finding Snapchat kind of fun. That's sort of fun. Mind you, if you see my Instagram feed, you'll probably know that. But yeah, so hopefully that's kind of figured that out for you, and hopefully I've given you some idea and some thought on how you can, you know, progress in that area. And actually what I'm saying, you can translate that over into Twitter as well. It's more or less the same, more or less. Obviously you can't use 10 hashtags over on Twitter because they've got a 140 character limit on there, but similar kind of thing. So hopefully that has given you some answers to the difference between thinking and knowing. And really, you need to know, you don't need to be thinking. Obviously everything starts off as a think, but make sure you think it right the way through. Do some half decent research, test that research to make sure that it's right, and if it is right, then go for it. Go for it. Absolutely max yourself out, and make it work. You know, make it work for you, because we don't want to be doing stuff that is a complete waste of time. Most of us have very limited time, so what you should be doing should be absolutely bang on for you. So I think I've waffled quite enough this afternoon. I'm going to go and have some lunch. I'll catch you next week. If you're catching this aside from live, then and you have any questions, you can always pop them in the comments box below, and I will come back to you, no problem. But until then, I will see you next week. Have a fabulous week, and I'll see you again soon. Toodaloo. Bye bye.